Let me see.
It says it's live streaming.
Yes. We're supposedly live streaming.
It says it is, so why don't we get started?
Yeah, I need to send it to LinkedIn. You know, we're live streaming in Zoom, and then I need to start in LinkedIn. You give me a minute. I will check. And okay. It seems that we should be. Go live. Okay. Welcome today. Happy Open Innovation Thursday, everybody. We are now in the sixth chapter of our mini sessions every week. This is the review of the chapter number 5 of the book. But you know, it's also a really amazing moment because we are now speaking with Joel West, who is also the 4th editor of the book, who we haven't spoken yet. So this is a double benefit today, a double happiness, no? Being speaking with you today. My name is Marcel Menendez, and we're here in Open Innovation Thursday. Let me welcome our friend Joel. Joel, welcome. How are you today?
Fine, thanks for having me, Marcel.
Thank you very much for joining us. And I always like to begin by asking our guest, please let us know a little bit about you. What have you been doing? What's your career? A little bit about yourself.
Well, okay. So when I got out of college, actually, even when I was in high school, I was in the software business. And at some point, being an Apple software developer, Apple was doing their best to go out of business. So I had to find something else to do. So I decided to become a business professor. So I got a PhD. And, this idea of comparative advantage, which I didn't know when I started the PhD program, I decided to write about IT firm strategy. And that was sort of the main bulk of my work for at least until maybe 2010, 2015, something like that. And then I went ahead and joined an institute which sent people to work in the biotech industry. So I took an interest in pharmaceuticals and medical devices in that industry as well. So I've my research has been around a range of tech companies, in part because of my background as an engineer, but in part because I found the issues interesting, particularly as an innovation scholar.
Oh, wow. And this road to being an innovation scholar led you also to connect with the open innovation world to the point that you are one of the editors of the book. This is amazing. What was, can you tell us a little bit about your experience of being in this project of putting together the book? How did you live it?
Yeah, so many of you know that this is the third book that Henry Wim and I have done together. And Agnieszka, this is the first book where she's joined us. And so we started talking about wanting to do a new book. How is it going to be different? And the idea I suggested that eventually everybody agreed with was that we should do a handbook where we're shooting for 60 chapters. We got 57, and we had a comprehensive look at the field and try to make a sort of definitive reference on open innovation. Whereas before we'd had sort of selected papers, which was easy in the first book, 2006, and there weren't a lot of academic work out there. But 20 years in, how do you come up with something that will have something new to say? And so we thought by making this encyclopedic approach, which had kind of evolved over the last 20 years, that would be a valuable and hopefully long-lasting resources for open innovation scholars, and also those that are new to open innovation, such as practitioners and students.
It's an amazing effort that we've discussed already with Henry, with Agnieszka, with Wim. One of the good values that we have here is this also transversal view with inputs from all around the world, different sectors and different dimensions of the framework in general. So really, thank you very much. On behalf of the open innovation community, I think we are also very happy about this initiative and, in fact, the usefulness of the guide as a source of knowledge, and not to read, as we said with Henry, as a novel, but as a Bible. And you wrote one of the chapters together with Marcel Bogers, who is also a very good friend of the community. And this chapter is called A Multi-Level Framework for Selecting and Implementing Innovation Models. Is that right?
Yep.
What is it about?
Well, so people who know my work or Marcel's notes, we've been working together about 15 years. I published a number of papers. The best known is probably the one on inbound open innovation. And when we wrote this paper, we wanted kind of to step back and try to offer sort of a fresh way of looking at 20 years open innovation research. And one of the key ideas was really two central ideas. One is that we wanted to separate the idea of creation and commercialization, because implicit in the original open innovation paradigm, and sometimes more visible than others in subsequent research, is this idea that we have two different capabilities for firms and two different activities, one of which is creating something value and one of which is trying to figure out a way to commercialize it. And obviously, the separation of that was one of the key insights of Henry's work. But we wanted to look at those two activities separately. And then if you think about inside and outside creation and commercialization, that suggests four modes. And the inside out and the outside in are pretty well known, but we also wanted to say, well, obviously, if you look at it this way, there's also an inside in and an outside out. And in particular, in the outside out, there had been a lot of new work since Henry's initial book in 2003 that we wanted to kind of set alongside the more familiar work particularly on the inside in, the outside in mode of open innovation, which seems to be the most studied at this point.
Yeah, it's interesting also seeing it from the practitioner perspective. These are the efforts where you either share your knowledge to others, and that's the inside out, or absorb knowledge and value from others, which would be outside in. But you can also create these dynamics either internally in the organization or connected outside. By the way, we spoke with Wim van Haverbekke, who was also talking about the outside out dimension, no? And you also talk about the importance of ambidexterity, no? What does this mean?
Well, so the chapter is a multi-level framework about why you'd want to do internal commercialization or internal or external innovation creation. But there's more than one thing going on. There may be an environmental set of factors that may encourage one or the other. For example, the strong IP in pharmaceuticals makes it easier for people to conduct open innovation because the transactions are protected by strong patents. So at the industry level, there may be a bias in one direction or another. A firm may have particular capabilities that by its initial nature, they bias towards one or the other. Like IBM was always very much about commercializing their own innovations. Most small biotechs don't have commercialization, so they have to rely on other people's commercialization. But then the third thing is that realistically, if you look at Henry's original work, his argument is you should be agnostic about inside or outside on a product by product or technology by technology basis. And so therefore, if you're really going to be able to do that, you have to have the ambidextrous capabilities to be able to say, okay, might we commercialize this inside or outside? Might we source this inside or outside? And approach every problem and every market and every need in a different way, depending on who has the technology or who has the market footprint in the industry and with the customers.
I really like this concept of multi-level and the ambidexterity, because in fact, one of the discoveries or the learnings that we have in the day-to-day application of open innovation is that the innovation perspective is not uniform within a firm. No, so you might have regions with more innovation or models that allow more for it, or some areas where you want to keep maybe in the crust of the company, and others where you want to collaborate in the core business. No, so you need, in fact, within a company, even be flexible and ready to apply all these differences and varied concepts. No, I think you can leave it in the real practice as well.
Well, I think that would be an interesting area of future research, because we treated the firm's capabilities as either being strong or weak for creation and commercialization. But actually, as you say, in a big company, there'll be different pockets of strength and weaknesses. And so you might be able to, within a single firm, look at, okay, is the firm, this division, say, or this market, one where we should have a bias in one direction or another? While as an overall firm, we want to not have a bias. We want to approach things on a case-by-case basis.
It's amazing. And you also talked about the past research that sustained all this, but do you have any advice for other academics? Because we have many friends, many researchers also looking into future research. What would be the other areas, as you mentioned one now, but other areas or advice, or what's the potential of what you put together in this chapter to discuss for our academics?
Yeah, as the editor and as a journal editor in the past, special issue editor frequently, you do have to come down to what is your one core idea? What are your one or two core ideas of what you can say new that hasn't been said? For example, Linus Dallander and David Gahn, in their highly cited 2010 paper, one of the core ideas they introduced was that the reasons for transacting an open innovation type relationship might be pecuniary or non-pecuniary. And that was a really key insight that we wanted to make sure we mentioned in this. One of the things that we think would be an area of future research is that Henry's been talking for a long, long time about we need more research on failure and open innovation. But we actually looked at that more closely, and there are 4 different ways that there could be a failure. There could be a failure because it's not a good fit to this particular firm, and so therefore that's a sort of a classic open innovation approach. There could be a failure because it needs to be reoriented or repurposed to some other technology. So, for example, the drug repurposing research, where you have something that was developed for one thing and it works much better for something else. The third is that it may not actually be something you could commercialize. And so Netscape's browser was an example where they made a great tool, but there really wasn't a business of it competing with Microsoft, which was giving away its own browsers. And so this is very much Eric von Hippel's world, which is, some innovations will create value for society, even if they can't generate commercial profits. And then finally, we have to recognize that some technologies just don't work. So we see this a lot, having worked on the drug industry for a dozen years. There are a lot of things that are started in the pipeline that look very promising that eventually fail, and they fail. And so I think there's a lot of opportunity, if you want to take up Henry's call to look at failure cases, to kind of think about it with more nuance and tease out some of these issues, because otherwise you just kind of assume every innovation. And the other thing is, of course, there's a research design issue, which if we sample on successful innovations, we're not going to learn about what happens with unsuccessful ones. So a large firm like a Philips, for example, you would want to look at all the innovations and not just the ones that came to market.
That's amazing. I'm working right now in an idea that I call the circular economy of innovation, because also failure is observant relevant, observer relevant.
Yeah.
It is something that is cataloged as a failure in one circumstance might not be in other context. And here there's a lot of effort, money, time, value, a box in those failures that we can recover, I think, through a dynamic of circularity. So for me, it's very exciting that you recognize this as an area of research.
Well, or you could, if you're a business professor, you can just write a business case about it, so you can monetize it by writing a story. But yes, and then obviously entrepreneurship literature talks about failing fast. So you don't necessarily want to put 3 years and $150 million into a failure. But if you spend 3 months and $50,000 in a large company, you may discover something much more exciting.
That's true. Well, we are ready to close now our session. Our 15 minutes are already gone. Any final advice, call to action for our audience?
Well, I just hope that those who are able to read the book, either buy it or convince their library to pick it up, this will stimulate ideas. Because this is one of the things I found having entered new literatures for the last 30 years, which is when you're new to literature, you say people are saying X, well, what about X prime or what about Y? And so kind of understanding how people think about things or how people have looked at problems often suggests a new opportunity for something that hasn't been covered. And so just immersing yourself in the literature and in the field for a new scholar is often the best way to get a sense of what's how you might build on the existing shoulders and what sort of openings there are for you to make your own mark.
That's a perfect advice to close this session. Let's grow together and build over what is existing. Thank you very much, Joe, for your time. I know it's very early for you because you are in the US, but it's been very fruitful and productive. Thank you very much. And thank you to everyone who connected today. Thank you.
Thank you, Marcel.
Bye-bye.